Obviously, if half the people have some, then the likelihood of a political reaction that is negative for Bitcoin is less likely. Like in the United States, everybody gets Social Security when they get 65 or thereabouts, right? So no politician wants to touch it, right? Because you're messing with something that everybody has an interest in. So no one wants to touch it. Now, the reality is it probably needs to be restructured, but no one's going to do it until there's a crisis because uh, it's, they call it the third rail in politics. In Europe, like some of the workers' rights, like ARD and in the UK, TUPE, and how people view their personal time, vacation time, and pension benefits. You can't touch that in Europe, right? Because that everybody gets that, and so that if you touch it as a politician, it's just not gonna it's not gonna happen. So you want everybody to have it.
Funny enough, Austria just slightly touched it this year for the first time ever, but like very low only. So usually in Austria, the pension is increased every year with inflation,
Right.
like with the official inflation rate. So it's 2.7% this year for Austria. And for the first time ever, at least the first time that I've seen, they increased only the salaries or the pensions that are monthly getting paid out to people that have a pension, increased only the pension to 2.7% if they have 2,500 or under that euros per month. For the few people above that, it gets cut in like half or something like that. So they're saving, I don't know, I think 400 million in Austria per year, which is for Austria a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
America nothing. So it's super funny because it's the first time that they touch it, and the pension people they went on the streets. Like we had all of a sudden all the people above 65 and 70 on the
Yeah.
streets, but even people that are now like 40, 45 that don't have a pension, even those went out because they fear if we already touch it now, like what if when I get it, like it won't be there anymore. They don't even increase it anymore. They decrease it then probably. So like
Yeah.
it is a huge topic currently in Austria. So I like that they touched it. But, but I see the reaction, and it was only small. Like was not a big thing. They only didn't increase the bigger ones. The smaller ones they didn't touch.
But think about that political concept. So many people have it, and it created such a political backlash that even though they probably should restructure it and means test it a little bit, uh, that it's hard to do. So it seems true with Bitcoin. We don't like they like what we don't want to see happen is taxing unrealized gains, right? That could be a huge one, right? It's like, wait a second, I have to do a mark to market on my taxes and pay the unrealized gains, which is essentially some level of confiscatory taxation where I'm just taking it from you, right? And so that would be terrible to see that happen. That will not happen if everybody has it. If only 5% or 2% of the people have it at scale, I would fully expect that to happen. So again, this is, I think we're going to see more democratization, but I think it's probably not as much as I thought we would have up to this point. And I think Bitcoiners need to take some responsibility in their own social circles to drive it out.
I 100% agree. We have to be active. And also, I don't like the notion that we shouldn't be politically active because there's this kind of notion, oh, I have Bitcoin, I don't care about politics. I fully disagree where we should be engaging with the politics, because even though you might not care about politics cares about you, and
Yeah.
maybe they cannot touch Bitcoin overall, but they can touch maybe your Bitcoin in specific.
Yeah, I would just say, I don't relate to that. I'm a local politician myself, so, but I would just say, you may not care about it, but like if people say, "Well, I have cold storage, it doesn't matter." Well, I would just say this: If you have cold storage, how many days do you have to get locked up in a cell and sit in a dungeon before you give it up? 6 months, a year? How about if you're being waterboarded at the time? I mean, you people are so if somebody really wants it, you know, and if it becomes hostile to own it, it's extremely difficult to enjoy that benefit of the cold storage. Now, I think people should have some cold storage. So don't interpret what I'm saying, but I just don't think it is a foolproof way. The better way is to engage society, get everybody on board, make this a widely held thing. Now, back to our conversation about AI and Bitcoin. I think AI is going to drive probably net drive more democratization, especially if we start to get into AI using Bitcoin as a foundation layer for exchanging value. So if people start using some of these great tools that are going to come out, yet to be determined, the Magic podcasting app that Robin's going to use in the future, so he can go hang out at the pub. So you have these great tools or great avatars or agents that you have for your podcast. But what if you have to pay in Bitcoin to make it happen? That'd be interesting, right? Now all of a sudden, now people are engaging. Oh, I want to use this tool, but the AI is requiring the payment in Bitcoin terms. They don't want to get paid in fiat. Right now, they can get paid in fiat and convert it over. But just think about it. I really think that you're going to see this convergence of money and intelligence, which is Bitcoin and AI, come together into an ecosystem. It will be led by AI, and this is I think it's going to be something that's going to be very big for us. Now, big doesn't mean better, but it means huge opportunity. And I think we need to think through all of the scenarios and permutations and manage the risks appropriately.
100% agreed. Like, I think AI has a huge impact, and I think having AI with Bitcoin. So, like, on my podcast, I actually tend to say, like, look at AI, because I think most people that are listening to this are already kind of looking at Bitcoin. There's probably like a few people that are, this is like one of the first videos in Bitcoin they watch. They might need to look really deeper into Bitcoin. But I also know there are a lot of people watching this that are already pretty deep and pretty knowledgeable on Bitcoin. And maybe they have to really increase like how they look at AI. And so when I'm on other podcasts, when I'm a guest, I'm always pushing Bitcoin because that's my main thing. But on my own podcast or with Bitcoin people in general, I'm like, have you looked into AI? Like, are you making sure that you know how to use it? Are you not sleeping on it? Like, are you taking advantage of it? Are you at least playing with it, that you know like what's going on and what's possible?
So let's go back to this Jason Lowry thesis, right? If the nation state, and let's use the U.S. specifically, uses, let's say that they create some version of a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and they use it for secure comms, right? For critical infrastructure systems. It's in the nation state interest to have a decent pile of Bitcoin for their own use. But it's also equally valuable to them. In fact, it's absolutely necessary for them to ensure that they don't have too big a pile that it crowds everybody out, and that everyone has as much as possible to drive the price up. So let's just say the US acquires, pick a number, 4 million Bitcoin, some big number. And they set the standard. That's the nation, and they use it to secure comms for critical infrastructure, for defense systems, for infrastructure, for anything critical. They want the rest of Bitcoin to be widely held and go to the moon in terms of price, because that is the purpose of the securing. The higher the price, the more expensive it is for people to hack systems, because they have to stake Bitcoin to get access. Now, again, that's Lowry's thesis. What would be the point of using Bitcoin to secure the comms if the price of Bitcoin goes to nothing? It'd be, okay, it's just a pain in the ass to do it. But if Bitcoin goes to $1 million or $500,000, and I have to stake 10 or 15 or 20 Bitcoin just to get access to a system, that's expensive for me as a hacker or somebody who's a bad actor trying to get into a system. And so, and it helps fund the security of the system. So you can see a positive outcome here where the Lowry thesis, uh, and again, this ties into the whole AI thing is I'm going to secure my systems through the staking of Bitcoin. And again, that's the concern that people have because the bad actor could be an AI based actor. And the AI still requires a staking. So it's not, AI does have its limits. There are financial limits and there are energy limits. If they don't have either one of those things, then I think it limits it increases the friction of their efficacy, right? So they can't do all the things that is possible because that friction is there. So I would like to see that happen, and I think Jason's being a little quiet recently probably is a good indication that he's busy. So I think he's going to be in Santa Monica uh, uh, later this in October. So I hope to see him. I got to meet him last year. He was very interesting.
I think he's an extremely interesting character who could become very important and interesting to hear from in Bitcoin. I mean, he's already, but like way bigger than that. Like I have no clue what he's doing currently. I can only speculate, obviously, but I feel like he's cooking.
Yeah. Some of the guys I know are in chats with him. I see. I sometimes I get exposure to some of that, but I definitely want to see him be successful, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he's able to say off the record. He's again, his thesis is thought provoking. Now, there's critics of his thesis, no doubt, and maybe they're right, but I think it's worth consideration that this is possible, that we could be staking communications with Bitcoin. And you can then see how it all comes together. The nation state is able to protect critical infrastructure, even from AI actors, by forcing protocol staking to do that. Now, in order for that to work, again, the nation state has to have a strategic reserve. You can't do it without it, right? Because if I'm going to secure the system through Bitcoin staking, and I need access to the system, I have to stake it as well, right? If there's a way to bypass the staking, then that's the back door that the AI would come in. So you're going to say this critical infrastructure system, you have to pick a number, 100 Bitcoin just to get access, right? And if somebody comes in and does anything nefarious, that 100 Bitcoin goes to the system and they lose it. So it's a very expensive proposition. Can you imagine wasting $10 million or $100 million on a potential hack? I can't. People are going to think twice about it. So that would be a very interesting scenario for me to go do that. And you're going to see, if that were to happen very quickly, the price of Bitcoin would appreciate to very high levels.
It's super interesting. What do you kind of foresee for Bitcoin? We've talked about the AI kind of view of the next 5 years, 10 years. What do you kind of foresee for Bitcoin happening?
Well, I think it's going to continue to go up. I don't see any reason why it won't. It's not to mean it won't have volatility going up and down. I just think, when you look at where this was, say at the beginning of 24, I think we were at 42,000. Now we're almost 200% higher than that, thereabouts. That's a pretty nice move. And so where are we in a year? Probably 200,000. But that could happen at any time. But that could happen by the end of the year. I'd say that's low probability, but by next spring for sure. Have you had Josh Mandel on your podcast?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Anyway, Josh is a character. He's a former Solomon Brothers trader back from the late 90s, and he's an interesting guy. Anyway, his prediction is it goes to 444,000 next summer, spring, and then retraces back. But I think that would be crazy if it hits. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. Is it likely? Probably not likely, but certainly possible. So I don't really know, Robin, but I would say My friend Fred is coming out with a book in the next week or two called Bitcoin 1 Million. I helped with I helped with the AI chapter that he wrote. It's a 21 chapter book, and it's a thesis on mathematically why it's going to 1 million. I would say I subscribe to that theory. I think it's going to do that, but I think we have to think through the friction that sits between here and 1 million. It's not. We talked a lot about the friction politically, economically, socially, et cetera. But I think that's what's coming. What I'm planning for personally is it going to 1 million. I just don't know if it's going to happen in 5 years or 10 years. And at some level, it doesn't really matter. Now, I'm an old guy, right? So I'm 61 right now. At some point, this $1 million concept is not for me. It's for my family. I'll be, it, at some level, I'm just gonna. So how am I doing with it? I have meetings with the family, and we talk about what it would mean, how wealth would be conveyed, what the rules are. I had a conversation with my son, who just had my first granddaughter about a year ago. So we were talking, and I had talked to his wife, and I said, "Look, I'm going to give each of the grandchildren 1 Bitcoin." Right. So now I'm thinking, okay. So I had the conversation with him about 2 months ago, and I said, each grandkid, if I have 6 grandkids, I'll just figure it out. I'll give them the 6 Bitcoin. But so just think about it, 1 Bitcoin for a grandchild born today. What's that worth in 20 years? And so let's just pick a number. Let's say it's $5 million. I said, do you want me giving your daughter, who's graduating high school, $5 million? And it's not an easy answer. It's not, you can say yes. I mean, because the answer is no, you don't want that, because that would mess them up. That would screw up their lives. But at the same time, you want to be able to take care of your family. So then it gets to a more sophisticated conversation. Like, how would you set up a family safety net to create maybe educational support for healthcare, maybe help buying a home, um, and providing them, what I'll call a high quality safety net, if you will. And then to what extent do you extend that net out to others? And that's the conversations that we're having as a family about what that means, right? Um, and then also, how do you enjoy the time you have? And don't think of things as a destination, but think of them as a journey. What's the proper use protocol? If someone has 1 Bitcoin, that has a very different protocol in terms of how they live their life versus somebody who maybe bought 25 or 50 Bitcoin and are sitting on a big chunk of money. How should you live your life? At a certain level. You don't want to be overly hedonistic, but you do want to enjoy your time with your family and your friends and not miss out on opportunities and experiences. So anyway, I'm going to talk about this in Santa Monica. I have one of the sessions is going to be about this wealth conveyance and how people should be engaging with their family and their friends and their community so that they become sort of a blessing to the people around them. And I think the more you are of that, the more likely it is you'll be able to enjoy what you have.
I think this is an important question, especially for Bitcoiners. Like for each and every one that is listening to this, they will be in 5, 10, 20 years a lot more wealthy than they are right now. And some might already be wealthy, so it does not make a huge difference. But some might not be that wealthy and get a lot of wealth through Bitcoin. And it's like, oh, what will you do with that? Like, just having a number on a Bitcoin balance doesn't change anything for you, for your family, or for society. How you use that money for the better or for the worse, that's a big question, I guess.
Yeah, look, I know lots of guys who have a tremendous amount of wealth right now, and so any increases to that wealth just becomes a number on a spreadsheet, and if they forget along the way about what their purpose is and how they should, again, I use the term conveyance, how should they convey that wealth? Because they can't spend it, they can't take it with them. So you have to think about what you're going to do with it, and how to be thoughtful about that. Again, you can. There's only so much money you can spend without being ridiculous, right? You can go. There's lots of examples of people being ridiculous, hiring posses and buying expensive cars and planes and boats. So you can burn away any amount of money you want, but a normal high-end luxury lifestyle that I would call is within the realm of reason. There's a limit. It is just how much can you go spend, and it becomes an empty life anyway. Do you really want to go do that, right? The life that is valuable is one with connections and relationships. So you want to think about how do you use your wealth to facilitate that, not just for you, but the people around you. So it's a big issue. I think a lot about it. I'm going to be interested to see what kind of pushback and dialogue I get in Santa Monica, because typically the people at that conference are uh, tend to be on the high net worth side. So we'll have to see how some of that plays out. I spoke a little bit at the last year's conference on some controversial subjects on retirement planning, and got some pretty interesting dialogue on that. But anyway, so Fred has me doing another session. I'm looking forward to it.
I love that. And we asked each and every one of the guests that is returning on the podcast, and you are not a second time on the podcast, one question. The question is, what have you learned outside of Bitcoin since your last appearance?
I think what I would say is I'm appreciating more the broader macro issues around Bitcoin that create this friction and adoption algebra. So, like, as I think through all of the things that are going on, I'm very appreciative of things around it, like what's happening with the equity markets, the gold markets, the politics, the social issues, the demographics, all of that affect Bitcoin. So when we talk about it in a narrow sense, if we ignore that, we are blinded by the variables that affect it. So I'm spending a lot of time outside of to pure Bitcoin stuff. I mean, I don't need to learn about the 21 million and the proof of work and all of that. I want to learn about the things that affect the adoption level, and I think where I'm spending most of my time right now is in the AI. What's happening with AI? How will it progress? What are the scenarios of its progression? And how will Bitcoin participate in those scenarios so that I can think through how to be best positioned for that? So again, we were speculating on the Jason Lowry thesis. That is one scenario, but there are many scenarios. So what I've learned is to appreciate the macro, and understand all of the variables that affect Bitcoin, and not just look at it with blinders on.
Interesting. Yeah, it's those granular, like I see so much that we sometimes have an huge confirming bias. And I think this is probably the biggest thing when we talk about, I mean, it's more general. I think it's probably about everything, that we always have a bias, and we want to confirm that, and we're searching for the confirmation. But having a deeper look and having a broader look uh, helps probably a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you have a lot more life experience than me, but I already noticed that in my small life. I'm now 27, where every year that goes on, my filters grow, and
Yeah.
it gets harder and harder to be open minded. Honestly,
Yeah. Look, we spend a lot of time on these spaces and within the X community, and even going to conferences and things like that. You have to protect yourself from falling into an echo chamber, where confirmation bias is filling that swimming pool up, and you're all over the place. So it's important to cultivate sources of information, people that you trust, people that you respect, that have different points of view from you, so that you're able to constantly test your thesis and be willing to consider alternatives. So I tell one of the folks when we have these conversations, I say, I believe everything and nothing simultaneously, which puts a lot of burden on you to critically think about everything. You have to question everything you hear, and accept the possibility that your version or your paradigm of reality may not be accurate. So, like people will throw out, and I've even heard Elon Musk talk about this issue that we're in a simulation. You must have heard this, right? So, and I've heard very smart people talk through it. Now, I consider that as a possibility that we're in a simulation. I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't bet, but I consider it. It costs nothing to consider it and think it through. And as I consider the fact that it's a simulation, I think through, well, this is not our first time through this. And maybe the architects of this simulation said, we're tired of AI winning this whole thing. We're going to go back in time and drop in Bitcoin in 2008. And Bitcoin is going to be the thing that's going to allow humanity to coexist with AI through this staking issue that we talked about. So they run in this simulation now, which is, can humans plus Bitcoin get to a détente with an AI, all-powerful AI? That's the simulation we're in now. Just think about it. It's a possibility. But again, this is the nature of what do you learn? If you consider all these things, it allows you to think it through. You don't have to bet on it. You don't have to assume it's true, but you have to consider that it might be true.
Thank you for watching this video. This was only a snippet of the podcast. And if you want to watch the full episode and get all of the context of this episode, you can click right here or here. Oh, maybe also here.